All right, while there's no substitute for you actually reading through this project as well as asking questions of your teacher and your peers, I'm going to point out a couple of highlights in this in hopefully a somewhat orderly fashion. So your ultimate goal is to collect data. And if you go and look at the example that I have online, which I'll show again in a second, I've got way more questions than I need because I'm not actually sure which data I'm going to use. So you're probably going to want to ask a few more questions than you think you need because you may think a couple of your questions either don't work or your data is not good and you don't want to have to go back and redo those questions. So here is some of the data that I gathered. This has been sorted, I think, by year in school and extracurricular. And that's not really important right now. But one of the things I can do with that is I can turn this into a frequency table, which is mentioned in the directions. And I kind of did that by hand. It's not quite all on the screen there. Let me go over. But that's what a frequency table looks like, is where you take some categories that have been broken down and look at them in different ways, and then do some analysis on this. So that's a frequency table. One of the other really cool tricks I want to show is like when I've got numericals, let's skip that, when I've got numerical data that I want to do a correlation for. So this is a great trick. If I copy all these, and these forms that we're giving you, if you actually use them, we'll dump it all right into a spreadsheet. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go over to Desmos, which I think I have open there. And I can go straight up here, and I can paste that directly in there. Oops. Control V. And it gives me an X1, Y1. So this looks like a scatter plot here. And they're how much do you like school and what is your height? So those probably aren't very well correlated, but you never know. In fact, it looks like there's maybe a slight downward trend there. All right, here's the really cool thing. Desmos will do this really super easy if you know the trick. So I'm going to type Y. I'm going to do a 1, and it's going to do the sub 1 because that's what that thing is. It just knows that. And then you have to do the tilde, the little squiggle, which is right by the 1. That special thing that means build me a regression line. And then you type M and X, and then 1 is the other, X1 is the X value, so I'm going to do a 1. And notice it did something, and then I'm going to do plus B. And now magically over here, there is a regression line, which is going down the way I thought it would. And if you look at the data over here, what's really cool is I have my R value, so it's negative 0.53, so it's somewhat correlated, although I question why it would be correlated. Gives me my slope, my B. It also has my residuals in there, which we'll talk about in class later in the week, but you can actually plot those automatically, which is kind of cool too. Okay, so that is probably something that you would eventually turn in with some analysis of why there's correlation and what do you think it means, does it mean anything? All right, so basic idea, collecting data, creating frequency tables, creating correlations, and then I think the third thing you had to do was take a single data set and talk about the standard deviation, median, mean, so forth, to create like a histogram and or a box and whisker plot. All right, so if you go to the link that's at the bottom of the page at the end, you will see this right here. This is just an example of some things because I wanted to show the different types of things you can do, and this is really powerful that you know how to do these. This is a great way to collect data from lots of people. And you don't actually have to use this form, but you probably want to use this form, whether you're sending it to people through social media and having them fill it out, or you just collect the data and then you type it all in this way. But the nice thing about this is once you're all done, it's going to dump it all right into a spreadsheet. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to just quickly build one of these things. Let me make sure I've gotten everything on my list. Yeah, because there's one thing in particular I want to show about building these things. I'm doing this one-handed, so this might be a mess. Okay, so I'm in my Google Drive. If I go to drive.google.com, it gives me that big list of things, and I do new. And I'm going to do, where is it? Oh, I think down here at more. I don't know why this is not doing what I want it to do here. Okay, Google Forms. I'm going to click Google Forms, and it's going to create a Google form, and I'm going to say my survey. I'm not going to worry about capitals because I'm typing with one hand. My survey, put a description there. You can put links in here even. It's awesome. Question. Maybe I want to know how many cats you have. Okay. Now this is a numeric question, most likely. And obviously I type in more. That's not very... so I'm going to go over here. I don't want to make a multiple choice. I want to make it a short answer. And I actually want to make sure there's a thing in there that says do validation. I want to make sure somebody doesn't type in like -1. And so I can do what's data validation here. So I click on that. No, actually I don't click on it. Down here, I can make that required. If I absolutely want somebody to do that, I can force them to do that if they want to submit the form. That's what required does. And then I can say, okay, data response validation. So I can say, hey, I want you to make sure that you do a number between, or actually I could do, oh, that's even better. See, there is whole number. That's one thing I could do to make sure that they give me something that's a positive number and not a fraction and not negative. So I could click that, or I could actually say, well, between, like I think I did this for height earlier. I think I validated height that people couldn't put in a crazy answer. So they had to put in a number between, I thought 36, nobody shorter than 3 feet, at least in any of my classes. And then I think I made it like 90 in case I had anybody gigantic, which I don't think I have anybody. That would be in inches. And then you can put custom error if they do something wrong there. But that's validation. That's really super useful sometimes, especially if you're going to make something required. So I can add that, and I can add another question. And then I can do a multiple choice question. This would be really good if you're doing categories. The only problem with that is you're limiting one choice. You could do checkboxes where they do multiple ones, but that's going to make your data collection kind of difficult if they do multiple answers, because it's going to, I think, create an array in each one of your cells for your spreadsheet. So I would stay away from checkboxes because it allows you to check more than one thing. And then another option is linear scale, which I think is, linear scale is one of the things that I think is in the rubric. And that just says I pick from 1 to 5, and maybe, like I think I add the question of how much do you like school? And once again, I should make that a better question, but I'm typing one-handed. And I can make hate a 1, and I can make love a 5, and then I can add another question. And so that ends, see how you got what's called a Likert scale, or is it a Likert scale, where they have to pick it. And it's helpful if you put a comment on both ends so they know what's good and what's bad. I'm double checking here. Anything else? 1 multiple choice or drop down, 1 linear scale, 2 free response. Now, once again, you probably want to collect more data than you need. So I'd think of a couple of numeric questions, a couple of category questions. Once again, the category questions are like, what year are you, is what I had, like freshman, sophomore, junior, because those are the things I can count. You need that for categorical data. And then you want some numerical data, so you've got single variable data sets, as well as you can put 2 data sets together and try to create a correlation. I think that is all that I need to say. Once you're done, one last fun thing, you can change the theme. So I can make this look like a guitar theme. And that'll make a nice little thing there. And then once you're done, you can hit send, and it will, you can send it to people directly, or you can just create the link and copy that. You can create a tiny URL, which would probably even be better, or a bit.ly, or whatever you know how to do to shorten a URL. But this, by default, these things are completely open. Nobody has to log in. Nobody has to have a Google document. The other thing to consider is if you want to ask people for name or emails, there are problems with that. I would not make that required because then people might not do your survey. But if you go back and look at my form, I said optionally, give me your email and I'll send you responses. And then when you're done, you can go to responses. I don't have any yet. And then that's how you get to if you are the owner, you'll see this if you're logged in. You'll see all the responses, some very nice looking things. In fact, let me go back to my other, because let's see. I'll do this thing real quick. Request edit. So I'm not logged in right now. I'm going to request edit access. I am Nutrix. This is my personal email. Publishing. And next. And next. So now you'll see I've got responses. Actually, I guess some people have looked at this. I've got 4 responses now. And I can see male or female. I can see year in school. I can see ages, things like that. So this is a very cool thing you can see, but you only see this if you are the actual owner. So you have to be logged into your Gmail account. And then if you go to the form, you'll see both this as well as this is how I get directly to the spreadsheet. I click on that.